In this video, we will look at changing the window on your graph on the TI-84. This is something we will do quite a bit when we are analyzing functions. So let's take a look at a particular function that we want to graph. Just to remind you, the y equal key is where we enter our function. Pressing the graph button shows the graph on the screen, and window and zoom changes the window that we are seeing on the screen. I prefer the window button, as you will see in this video. So let's enter a new function. So let's enter the function negative x squared plus 10x plus 24. So this is what we want to graph. Okay, so let's take a look. Negative, don't forget the negative sign is different from the subtraction button. It's a common mistake students make. So negative x squared plus 10 times x plus 24, and then enter. And now we want to graph this, so we'll press the graph button. Now again, if your graph does not look like this, it generally means that you are in a different window. So I've shown you this before, but let's just do it again. Zoom, option 6 for standard will take you to the standard window, which remember is x going from minus 10 to 10 and y going from minus 10 to 10. So there's the graph of the function. You might recognize that we have a quadratic function, and on the screen this certainly does not look like a quadratic function, and that's because we're not seeing the whole picture. So let's try to get a bigger and better view of this. Now you can use the zoom key or the window key. I prefer the window key because I have more control. Let's just see what happens when you press zoom. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. Notice there's our zoom standard. Okay. So you can zoom in and zoom out. I'm not a fan of that. I like to have more control. So I will press the window key. Don't let me get out of here. So clear. Now I'll push the window key. And you'll notice here you have control. You can put in the lowest value of x on the screen. That's x min. The highest value of x on the screen. That's x max. XSCL, that stands for scale. That tells you what the value of each tick mark. So each tick mark is 1. And it does the same thing for y. The smallest y value on the screen, the biggest y value on the screen, and the scale for the tick marks in the y direction. Okay. Now let me just go back. So let's press clear. Let's just go back to the graph. Let me just push graph then. We'll go back to graph. And we have a feeling that this is supposed to look like a parabola since this is a quadratic function. But we are not seeing the whole picture. So it looks like what I want to do is increase the height of this graph. So I want to increase in the y direction. So I will press window. And I want to change the height to something bigger. So I'll use the arrow key to go down to y max. And let's change it to 20. So 20, enter. and then we'll press graph again and see if we have a better picture. Okay. Really not much difference. So let's go a little bit higher. Window. Use the arrow keys to scroll down. Let's try 30. So 30, enter. And then the graph button again. So notice we see a little more here. The graph is going up, and this little piece right there, you can see that the graph is coming back down. Okay, so there must be something going on up top there. You'll also notice that there's a lot of trial and error involved in this. So let's try it again. Let's increase our X max now to 20 because we saw it was coming down a little bit there on the right. And let's try 50. And a lot of this is trial and error. Press enter and graph again. So there you can see we actually do have a pretty decent picture of the parabola, the graph of this quadratic function. And we got that by changing the window. And again, I prefer changing the window to zooming because I have more control over what it looks like. So that would be how to change the window to get a better look at your graph.